What's going on, everybody? You may have seen that yesterday I was trying to clear Labyrinth of Legends without using a single item, and I didn't really explain the challenge and, the champions I was bringing and all that stuff before firing up the live stream. And I tried to explain it as I was going, but it's like a 3-hour stream or something like that, so there's little bits and pieces of info here and there, and I kind of just wanted to condense all of that in this video. The strategy that I went in there with, why Void is such a sustainable champion, all of the synergies that are included, the Mastery setup that I was using, which is somewhat of a unique Mastery setup for this challenge, and I also want to talk about why I'm even doing this challenge in the first place, which might be pretty interesting, because I don't know if I want to use items in single-player content at all anymore. And I'll get to that. There's a lot of questions you may have after hearing something like that, but I'm going to try to answer them as we go. First, I want to explain the actual setup I was using, because things might make a little bit more sense after I explain my setup here. So, I was using Void as my main clearing champion. The reason I picked Void is because he is extremely sustainable when you have the right synergies and the right masteries. First off, Void himself, one of his debuffs, probably the weakest debuff, or considered to be one of the weakest debuffs, is fatigue that he applies to the enemy. It's actually the top line on the screen now. The fatigue debuff reduces critical rating by a little over 1,000, and you can get 2 of those stacks going. I mean, if you look at most champions' base crit rate, even just one of those debuffs completely eliminates the champion's chance to land a critical hit. Sometimes you need to get more than one debuff going, and there's always modifiers from special abilities and stuff like that, so you're not completely immune to being crit, but for the most part you're not going to be getting crit. And this game is very lopsided in terms of where damage comes from, where I almost feel like it's a problem in a way that so much of the damage it comes from critical hits, where if you're not landing critical hits, it feels like you're not dealing any damage. So yeah, if you completely eliminate the enemy's chance to land a critical hit, if you slip up, if they evade, if you get stunned or something like that, you get hit by a special attack because you failed to evade it, you're just going to take a lot less damage using a champion like Void that can reduce that crit chance. So that's one of the reasons that Void's so sustainable. The other, probably the next biggest one, is this synergy here with Killmonger, where you can actually heal every time you land one of Void's intimidating presence debuffs, and this happens when the timer just naturally ticks away and a debuff gets automatically applied, and it also happens when you use your special one. So just spamming the special one, you will end up regenerating quite a bit of health. And in a lot of these fights, I was able to come out with either full health or close to it. It gets pretty dicey once the enemies get into their first enrage timer. The fight goes on, of course, but they start hitting a lot harder. And if you slip up, or if you have already used all of your parries and you have to block and bait out heavy attacks or that type of thing, you will take a lot of damage. And I found myself, practically ending the fight with a full health bar, and then having to block and bait out a couple of heavy attacks at the end, and suddenly being down to like 75-80% health. That was pretty common throughout the run. So yeah, and of course you can still die just because you're reducing damage and healing and stuff like that. Does not mean you're immune to death, but it just allows you to keep going as long as you're on top of your game, as long as you're not getting too unlucky with the evades and stuff like that. And it worked out pretty well. Using just Void, I got all the way to War Machine, and I died to War Machine. I was able to power through with the rest of my champions, just to say that I got to Ant-Man, who was the next fight. But yeah, that's currently my best run, is essentially getting to that Ant-Man. The other synergies here, I have Omega Red on the team for this Deadly Presence synergy, where Void's Intimidating Presence debuffs deal 10% more damage. There's not a lot of ways to have a big increase on Void's damage, because he already gains so much plus attack from his Fear of the Void passive after he rolls all the debuffs into Fear of the Void. He gains so much plus attack there that other synergies that increase attack really don't do a ton. I do have another plus attack synergy here with with the Vulture that adds a very minor amount of damage overall. But this synergy with Omega Red, it's really the best way to add additional damage to Void, because these fights are pretty long. Void can survive like no other. Well, maybe like some others, but he can survive a lot. But his damage overall is pretty weak compared to some of the other heavier hitting champions out there. Alright, next up I had Stark Spidey on the team, and the reason I had Stark Spidey on the team was because against Maestro in Labyrinth, with Science Champions, you cannot land a single debuff. No parry stuns, none of Void's regular debuffs, so I cannot use Void in that fight for anything other than just, you know, punching him in the face a few times until I eventually die, and maybe I can deal a small amount of damage or something. But for the most part, I need another champion that can handle Maestro. And my best option, or at least I thought my best option, was Stark Spidey. Stark Spidey, and the reason why I have this Vulture synergy, the reason why Vulture's on the team even, is because of the synergy that he has with Stark Spidey, where you have plus 15% ability accuracy while the AI is active, which means that's going to increase his auto evade chance. And you know, against Maestro's L1, I'm not that good at evading it, and you know, if I can get that extra chance to auto evade, I feel like that has a more meaningful impact on my chance to one-shot Maestro, more meaningful impact than any other synergy that I could possibly think of. There are other good synergies, of course. You know, it would be nice if I can get the infinite parry synergy set up with like Miles Morales or something like that, right? And it's possible that maybe it'd be better to have this guy versus, you know, like to have this synergy versus bringing someone like Omega Red. I don't know. But I figured this was my best setup. I'm actually going to make some changes. I'll talk about that in another video, but this was the team that I had planned out for a very long time. Basically, since I got a 5-star Void. Even before I got 5-star Void, I had thought about something like this. You know, Omega Red had not come out yet, but he didn't really have a huge change on the team. He just added that extra damage. Otherwise, I've been thinking about this for a very, very long time, guys. But yeah, I will make some changes potentially going forward after running into that War Machine and kind of you know, being roadblocked by him. As far as my mastery setup is concerned, you know, I have a pretty bare bones offensive masteries here. You know, there's not a whole lot of masteries that will increase Void's damage in a meaningful way, at least. You may think, like, well, first off, you know, the crit and crit damage does not affect the debuff damage that's ticking over time, which does make up a lot. It makes up a very large portion of Void's damage. If you think about, you know, you don't have any power control with Void, so you have to be baiting out specials constantly. And, you know, sometimes the AI is kind of annoying. It'll take them 15, 20 seconds before they throw a special. All that time with other champions, you know, you're kind of just standing around waiting, and even if you're going to be hitting harder with someone like Star-Lord, where you get ramped up and you'll deal more damage eventually, with someone like Void, you have to rely on just getting in this damage, this constant damage over time, to make up for the fact that he doesn't hit very hard unless you have like 2 Fear of the Voids up. Then he hits decently hard at least. But the reason why I have Cruelty and Precision over a mastery like Greater Strength, which would affect the debuff damage, is because it's just very insignificant. You already gain so much plus attack from Fear of the Void that 8% of your base attack is almost unnoticeable. It's, you know, it really does not add much at all. And your attacks actually do hit decently hard, like I said, once you get the Fear of the Voids, especially if you have 2 Fear of the Voids up, which does happen throughout the fight. And just landing those critical hits, you know, sometimes you can crit for at least decent numbers. You know, it's nowhere near the range of some of the actual real damage dealing champions, but it's decent. So I have those masteries. I have Despair mostly for the fight against Magic, where, you know, if I could reduce her healing and actually reverse the healing on her Limbos, it was dealing about 20,000 extra damage to her every time she activated Limbo. So instead of her healing for 20k, she took 20k damage, which helped. You know, it helped to bring down that Magic a little bit faster. Next time I do that Magic fight, It's going to be a little bit different for anyone who was there during the live stream. I kind of slow played it at first, and because I was scared about triggering limbo and taking a lot of damage from that. So I was trying to slow play it until I got enough debuffs so that my inequity was going to reduce her attack rating, and then I would take less damage from limbo. But what ended up happening is that she went into her first enrage phase towards the end of the fight, and that enrage increased her limbo damage by like 5 times or something. It was going from like 150 to like 750. It was a huge deal. And next time going forward, I'm just going to go all out, and hopefully with thanks to this Despair Mastery helping to deal some damage, hopefully I can drop that magic before she even enters that first enrage phase, and that'll keep me healthy for the future fights after that. But moving on to the rest of the defensive tree here, let's talk about the right side of the tree first. I already talked about inequity here a little bit, but this mastery is one of the best masteries that you can possibly have when going into Labyrinth of Legends. I don't know if it's bugged or working as intended at this point, but the way inequity currently works is that it only reduces the champion's base attack. And in some content where the enemies have nodes, there could be a global node where the enemy has like plus 300% attack or something like that. If you have this mastery and you have enough debuffs to reduce it by 36%, you don't even notice. You don't even notice. This mastery really shines in content where they don't have any big buffs like that. And Labyrinth of Legends, they don't have any. So reducing their attack by 36% is a huge deal. It's basically reducing their overall damage by 36%. Now, you don't always have 6 debuffs going with Void, but even those times where you only have like 1 or 2 debuffs, it's still a massive reduction in overall damage. Reduces the damage that you're going to take when blocking, baiting out those heavy attacks, that type of thing. And yeah, it's fantastic. I don't know. I can't say enough about it. I also have Resonate, which will stack on top of it and reduce that damage by a little bit more. And the fact that I'm getting this much damage reduction and basically nullifying their chance to land a critical hit means that if I do slip up or if they do evade and I take a few shots to the face or something, it's so much reduced damage compared to using other champions. It's great. Void, he's fantastic for the 1.5 million health fights. I don't think he has the damage output to take on the 3.3 million health fights. Not until we get to like a high sig level rank 3 6-star. So I'm not at all saying that Void is like the #1 Labyrinth champion out there for exploring or anything like that. But if you have a 565 Void and you haven't done Easy Path yet or something like that, he is more than capable of getting it done. Alright, I also have, the 1 point in willpower. It's a prerequisite, but it also does help in certain fights where I am getting hit by debuff or something like that. And I also have this Serum Science Mastery, which again helps with, in combination with willpower, for example, this reduction of energy damage that I'll be taking against Cyclops, who has that kind of annoying L1 to evade. Most of the time I could evade it, but sometimes the timing on it's pretty tight, get clipped by it or something. I wasn't taking a whole lot of damage because I did mess up a few times. With all the other damage reduction, the inequity and all that, plus the energy resistance from Serum Science, plus I had that armor break on me and healing back a little bit with willpower. I couldn't just stand still and eat the whole special one, but getting clipped by just the final hit of it really wasn't a big deal. I took a very small amount of damage overall. I also have this Serum Science for magic. That's the real reason I have it. I didn't pick up, I didn't put 5 points as mastery just to take down Cyclops. But having this extra energy resistance against Magic's Limbo helps a ton to reduce that overall damage. This combined with inequity and resonate and everything, it really wasn't hitting that hard. Alright, I have 17 points in the left half of the tree. 15 of these points are pretty standard that I always run. I've explained a ton of times why I feel like these 15 points are essentially the best overall 15 points to have, and I couldn't find any other better setup for this specific challenge either. I did have 2 points left over after placing all of the core masteries that I wanted, and I just plopped these down into perfect block because I knew that I would be baiting out heavy attacks a lot. And although I'm reducing damage and stuff like that, if I could still get those extra perfect blocks off to further reduce damage, then that's great. Because I need to be as sustainable as possible. I need to finish these fights with near or at 100% health if I want to have any chance of continuing through the labyrinth and giving myself an opportunity to slip up and make a mistake during the next fight, and then have time to recover with the healing, because it is a very slow healing. You're applying lots of these intimidating presence debuffs on the enemy, but you're only getting 1% health each time. You're getting slightly more with the recovery mastery, but still, it's a very small amount of healing. So you have to be reducing damage by a lot in order to get yourself in a situation where you can be topped off. But it is definitely doable. Alright, as far as the proficiencies tree, I have maxed out Limber, which as far as I'm concerned is essential for this challenge because the enemies in there do stun. If they evade, hit you with a 5-hit combo, they could stun you. If you don't have the Limber mastery, you're dead. There's a very high chance of you just being dead right there and the challenge is over. So, yeah, have to have Limber maxed out. Parry, parry doesn't have to be maxed out necessarily, but, if I'm playing it correctly here, I'll be baiting out heavy attacks mostly in the earlier parts of the fight, saving my parries for when the enemy goes into their enrage phase, and I need to be reducing as much damage as possible during that enrage phase, especially towards the end of the fight where I'm trying to get myself and trying to stay at 100% health or close to it to carry on to the next fight. So I figured, there's no better points to have that than to have that maxed out. I have the 1 point in dexterity and the 3 points in stupefy just to give myself some extra stuns. Since of course there is Limber in in Labyrinth. So that's pretty much it as far as the strategy that I was using to try to get through Labyrinth with this team and this setup. And I kind of want to talk about why now. Why am I doing this challenge, and why did I say at the beginning of this video that I may not want to use items anymore in single player content? Which, to be clear, I'm talking about items that can help my champions in some way, which means no boosts, no revives, no potions. But energy refills, yeah, they're an item, but when I say itemless, I'm not counting those. Energy refills, I think, are okay. It's more about the challenge of getting through the content without having to use any of those items that can, bring my champions back from the dead or something. So, why, though? Why am I doing this? Well, I feel like we have a lot of tools at our disposal that just go unused. And ultimately, it just feels like the game's more fun if I have to kind of dig into those tools. Like, when do you see anybody pick up the Serum Science Mastery? It's almost unheard of. It's a really good mastery in the right situation, but it's almost unheard of. Why is that? Because it's just easier to, use some potions or something. I picked up this mastery specifically for the magic fight, but really, you could just walk in there with any champion, and 2, 3, it doesn't matter how many times you have to revive and heal back up to get through magic if you're not playing a champion that could one-shot her. It's still easier to get those few consumables, those few revives or potions, or even units if you have to spend units on them, versus picking up a mastery like this. But in my opinion, it's way more fun, having to make that difficult decision of like, all right, is there a way that I can save picking up this mastery? Can I bring in a different champion that handles magic? Or do I have to bite the bullet, pick up Serum Science, and that'll prevent me from picking up another mastery, such as Deep Wounds, which, yeah, for this team, doesn't matter that I don't have Deep Wounds, but if I was bringing bleed-based champions, then of course I would want this mastery. And now I have to make other decisions. Where can I swap around some other points? Maybe for a future challenge, the next variant or something, maybe I need mutagenesis for some reason. And it's just fun for me to actually have to look into this stuff, and it increases the depth of the game, in my opinion. Whereas, yeah, I could definitely just go farm some potions. I've done that plenty of times in the past. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying, I'm not knocking anyone for doing that. Like I said, I've farmed well over 1,000 potions off of Winter Soldier myself, and it's actually a lot better these days farming Realm of Legends. I actually kind of enjoy going through there with new champions that I rank up and trying to do speed runs and stuff like that. So it's not even like I'm just completely sick of farming potions. I don't mind it that much, at least, unless I've already farmed like 100 in a sitting, and then I'm like, okay, I don't want to see this anymore. But I kind of enjoy going through there. It is a somewhat fun part of the game, but I just think I would enjoy the game even more if I have to take a closer look at the strategy that's involved with the masteries that I'm using, the champions that I'm bringing into it. It's just going to make it more fun for me personally. Now, there's a lot of downsides to this, which is why I'm not fully committing to the idea of, going itemless from here on out. First off, bugs. This game has bugs on top of bugs. Each bug comes with its own bug, and that it's more difficult to do something like this when you might have done everything right. Your strategy might be correct. The way you're playing the game is you can't really realistically play much better or anything like that, but then you spend all that time, that effort, get to the final boss, and you die because of some bug. You try to swipe back, it doesn't take, something like that. I don't know. There's plenty of bugs in this game. I actually ran into a new bug inside of Labyrinth where I had 6 debuffs up, 6 of the Intimidating Presence debuffs on Gamora, and it would not roll into Fear of the Void, no matter what I did. So for the remainder of the fight, I couldn't get Fear of the Void. And it ended up being a very long fight. I almost hit the second enrage timer, but luckily I was able to take her down just before that. But that could have been a run ender, and that would have sucked. That would have sucked big time. So yeah, the bugs do make this type of play a lot more annoying, whereas if you run into a bug, it sucks. It's no matter how you're playing the game, it sucks, but hey, at least you could just pop a revive, some potions, get back into the fight. Wouldn't be able to do that with this type of strategy, potentially. Probably the biggest problem is that it's more time consuming, and I wouldn't be putting more time into this game to to play this way. What would happen is I would be taking that time away from other areas of the game. So I wouldn't be able to farm as many units from the arena, which means I also wouldn't be able to farm as much gold, which means I wouldn't be able to rank up as many champions. A lot of these little snowball effects from not being able to put that time into something like the arena would happen, and my account overall would, I don't want to say like fall behind. I think I'd be fine overall, but it'd be more fun, of course, if I could rank up more champions and everything. So that does kind of hurt the fun factor a little bit right there as well. I also think that it would, there was a good turnout as far as the stream goes yesterday. I don't remember how many people were there. Maybe, I think it topped out around like 750 or something like that. Maybe it hit 800 at one point. Which is cool, man. Appreciate everyone checking out the stream and everything. But overall, for someone running a YouTube channel, taking on this additional challenge, maybe every once in a while would be beneficial for like the total number of views or something like that. But overall, it would not help things. It just wouldn't. Like having to put more time into it. Like the best way to get views on a YouTube channel is to just pop open crystals, pretty much. And if I'm getting less shards from the arena and less resources, or like that's less crystals that I could pop, I have to spend more time doing this type of content versus making other type of content. Like it's overall, it doesn't work out. It's kind of hard to explain, maybe if. From the other side of the YouTube things, but if you ask other YouTubers, like, no, this definitely wouldn't be just a way to get additional views or something. It's kind of the same thing with being free to play. There's a lot of opportunities that I just miss out on for for being free to play. Prestige is another concern where playing the game this way. It would be more fun to rank up champions that I'm actually going to use to help get me through these challenges, but ultimately it would reduce the amount of champions that I could rank up based on their prestige. For example, I may have to put more rank up resources into someone like Hulk Ragnarok in order to get through Starburst lanes, and he's perfectly fine at getting through Starburst lanes at a lower rank, provided you have some resources to heal him up, because he does take some damage. But, if I wanted to go through without dying, then I might have to actually rank him up over another champion, which you know, I can't really do that and stay in for Loki. I need to keep focusing on Prestige. It also kind of brings to question, what about Legends runs? You know, during a Legends run, I can't just... First off, I got a boost, right? And second, I can't just back out of the quest if something goes wrong. No, I would have to go all out. I would have to boost. I would have to pop potions and revives throughout the way to keep myself sustained and with the highest damage dealing champions and all that. So I wouldn't be able to do this for a Legends run. So what do I do then? Do I say, screw the whole itemless challenge thing, do a Legends run, and then go back in later to do it itemless? I don't know. What about temporary content too? What if there is a new celebrity challenge that comes out? Maybe I don't have such good champions for it. It's really difficult. We've only got like 2 weeks to get it done. Whereas I'm okay with kind of waiting on getting the rewards from something if it's really challenging. And I look forward to challenges like that. But if I'm not going to be using any items, would I just let those temporary rewards slip away? I can't do that, man. I would have to use some items there too. And then also there's just the cost of energy refills. You know, there's a cost associated with potions and revives too and everything, but for the most part, unless it's a really big challenge that comes out, I don't really have to even spend much time farming potions and revives. I kind of just have these things. I have some refills in here too, actually, but that's not normal. That's just because I don't know, Kabam gave some out for the compensation or something like that. But the potions and revives, these things are always expiring constantly. So I could always just kind of take my time through some content. Whereas if I'm using the energy refills, no, I would have to buy those. I'm not going to spend time trying to farm them from older content or anything. Those would just be unit losses. And if it's a really tough challenge, it could be a lot of unit loss. So outside of just being really fun to kind of come up with the strategy of doing whatever I possibly can, taking advantage of any little thing I can, any mastery that kind of goes unnoticed, maybe a different synergy that doesn't get used because, hey, who needs to use a certain utility synergy when you could just like plow through content with Corvus or something like that, right? Or in my case, Omega Red. You know, it would be a lot more fun to strategize over this stuff. But in literally every other way that I could think of, it's just a negative to do these itemless types of things here. So I'm gonna have to think about it some more. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of catch you guys up to what I've been thinking about for a long time now. For I don't know, man. I feel like it's been over a year that I've been thinking about this. Maybe like a year and a half even that I've been thinking about doing things like this. I wish Kabam just put something in game for specific events that had these types of challenges or something, and then I'd be like, oh, cool. You know, I don't have to set up these like imaginary rules on my own account here. I could just say, all right, I'm gonna play through the content the normal way, or decide to take on like the challenge just to check off a box in game or something like that, which would be really satisfying actually. But anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. We'll talk more about this during the live streams and everything. Let me know what you guys think. Am I nuts? I don't care. I am nuts. So what? Let's do it anyway. The next time I'm gonna enter the Labyrinth with a slightly adjusted team. I don't know when exactly that's gonna be, but it won't be too far from now. I would ideally like to get back in there a few more times and hopefully even complete the challenge before this monthly event quest is over, since, you know, I have already completed the monthly event quest for the most part. But that's it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.